The great thing about the internet is that it makes it incredibly easy to find enormous amounts of information. The bad thing about the internet is that it takes an awful lot of expertise in order to be able to evaluate what on the internet is worth your time in reading and what on the internet is not worth your time. So back to OneSearch. It occurred to me that some of you might have an awful lot of experience using this database, and so you don't necessarily need any help, and others of you might be just accustomed to using Bing or Google or something to find information, and that's probably not going to cut it. So let's provide a little bit of help. Okay, in OneSearch, and we are on the advanced search page. As you can see, we have our different bars to put information in, and we can select our material types, language, and publication date. So for my students who are majoring in nursing, try this. Put the word homeless in the top bar, put the word nursing in the second bar, select material type articles, and select publication date last 5 years. Click on the search bar, and once you do that, you get this left menu panel open, and you select full text online, peer-reviewed journals, you just tick the boxes, and articles, so that you're sure that everything that appears here is something that's good to go, good to use. And you will see that you have, okay, article, leadership advocacy, bringing nursing to the homeless and underserved. It is published in Nursing Administration Quarterly. So this right here, this is your journal, Nursing Administration Quarterly. That's a terrific academic journal for you to go to as a nursing student to look for information. We have a second one, end-of-life care for homeless people in shelter-based nursing care. That's a little bit narrower of a topic. It's in palliative medicine. It might be a topic that is of interest to you, so there you go. Here we go. Nursing diagnoses of the homeless population in light of self-care theory. It's also pretty interesting. This one was published in Archives of Psychiatric Nursing. Anyway, so again, just do this. Go ahead and put homeless in the top bar. You can leave it as any field. You'll still get a lot of good stuff. And any field, nursing. Articles, last 5 years. And this is for everybody. You want articles, you want last 5 years. And also for everybody, you'll want to select full text online so that you can read the article. You want to make sure it's a peer-reviewed journal, and you want to make sure that it's articles. I don't want any of you pulling up dissertations. Those are hundreds of pages long and not necessarily of the same quality, certainly not of the same quality as an academic journal. It has to be much higher quality to get into one of those. Okay, psychology majors. Same thing, homeless on the top bar, psychology on the second bar, articles last 5 years. And then you hit search, and then you select full text online, peer-reviewed articles, and you see we have how to help homeless youth suffering from first episode psychosis, substance use disorders, the creation of a new intensive outreach intervention team. This is published in Psychiatry Research, so that's a good journal for you. The topic is a little bit too narrow, probably, for your purposes. Here we go. HIV, also fairly narrow, but could be of use, you know, you take an interest. Life Starts For Me Again, the social impact of psychology on programs for homeless people, solidarity networks for the effectiveness of interventions. This actually sounds perfect for what we are doing. This is published in Frontiers in Psychology, so that looks like a really, really good article for you guys. Also potential healthcare barriers and utilization among adolescents and young adults accessing services for homeless and runaway youth. That looks really, really good. Journal of Community Health, and so on. So again, you try this search, see what comes on the page, and find some useful articles. And next we try education. We've got some education majors, and I'm not going to keep repeating, you know what to do. And we can look at some of the articles here. On the conditions of fragility, homeless education policy, accountability, and researcher reflections. This is about, this is published in Education and Urban Society, really, really good journal. Correction to the U.S. homeless student population, published in Child and Youth Care Forum, also a very good journal. A framework for disaster resilience education with homeless communities. Actually, that looks perfect too. Disaster prevention and management, because we are talking about, you know, people who are at very high risk, and if you look at it, homelessness and disaster, those kind of go hand in hand as well. People lose their homes. Anyway, there's several different articles here that may be of use, and you can refine things too. Also for people in ag education, people in industrial technology, all my Aggies, you could consider checking this out, homeless and job training. So you might get some useful stuff here. In vivo job development training among peer providers of homeless veterans, supported employment programs, published in the Psychiatric Rehabilitation Journal. Community Mental Health Journal. Let's see. Children and Youth Services Review. This is Understanding Organizations for Runaway and Homeless Youth, a multi-setting quantitative study of the characteristics and effects. That looks really perfect, really perfect. Okay, let's look at another one. Homeless and law enforcement for law enforcement majors. Again, articles last 5 years, and make sure they're peer-reviewed, full-text articles. There were some good ones here. Let me see. We wanted to look at, again, a lot of stuff is being published in the journals of psychiatry here. But this looks really good. The public doesn't understand the self-reinforcing interplay of image discrepancies in political ideologies and law enforcement. That looks rich, really, really rich for my law enforcement people. Let's see. Seattle's Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion, LEAD, Program Effects on Criminal Justice and Legal System Utilization and Cost. Race, Street Life, and Policing, Implications for Racial Profiling. There's also a certain amount of potential there if you're interested. Okay. And then I thought for engineering and industrial technology, we would try looking at articles that talk about tiny house villages themselves. So tiny house village and homeless. And in that selection we found social traditions and the built form, the tiny house village model for chronically homeless Americans. That looks really perfect for you guys who will be concerning yourselves with the build itself. Combating homelessness in Canada, applying lessons learned from 6 tiny villages, towards a typology of tiny houses. A lot of these look really, really good, and so you can read up on how the tiny houses themselves and the tiny house villages are being used to sort of, if you like, supplement or possibly potentially replace the shelter idea. And last, for our major in statistics, homelessness statistical modeling are options that I tried here, selecting homeless in the top bar. And I found that it worked better if I changed the top bar to subject homeless, because otherwise I was getting a lot of articles about statistical modeling that weren't about the homeless. So I had to change it from any field to subject. And if you look here, you have choices on telling the program how to read this bar. So you can tell it any field is the default, but you can ask for something to be in the title, a title word, if you know it. If you know an author, and this is just a really good idea anyway for anybody doing research, if you find somebody who writes really well on your subject area, someone who is highly informed, highly respected, and their information is very, very trustworthy and good and rich, you can do searches on that author and find what other things that author has written. And for this, so I picked subject and homeless and statistical modeling. And we got a modeling study exploring the impact of homelessness on rostered primary care utilization in Calgary, Canada. So that's one way that statistical data is used an awful lot to look at what kind of impact homeless people have on the healthcare system. Because of course, what every healthcare system wants is for people to use preventive care, because that gives everyone a higher quality of life, and it's a lot cheaper to just make people healthy all the time. What's expensive and a bad use of money is to have people wait years with chronic illnesses, with injuries, with disease, and then get treated when they're in just the maximum amount of pain, when their mobility is severely constricted, and then you spend a ton of money for these people, and the results are not going to be as good. If you can help someone right after an injury, the body can heal properly. I mean, think of it. I can remember horror stories from my grandmother about my dad breaking his arm as a small child, and the doctor said it wrong, and then it grew, healed incorrectly, and then the doctor broke it again. You can imagine being a small child and what that's like. Well, with homeless people, that's just one example, but there are all kinds of injuries that people can have, all kinds of diseases that they can develop just from being where they are. And if those healthcare situations aren't met, it ends up being bad. And this is why I'm telling you, putting people someplace where they can be cared for is actually a lot cheaper than leaving them to suffer. So this program, it's a humanitarian program, it's a civic program, that's the idea. But it's also just smart economically, I'm saying. Okay, but there's all kinds of ways of doing statistical modeling. Predictive modeling of housing instability and homelessness in the Veterans Health Administration. That could be a really, really good article for you to look at. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff here, but this was just to give you an idea, and the basic idea is that you can take your word homeless and you can add, you know, your field area. Just put that on the second bar. Don't put them together. Put them on the second bar. OneSearch is going to work a lot better for you if you separate your topics on different bars. And use articles, use last 5 years. Remember to put in full text online so that you can read it, and put in peer-reviewed journals and articles, and then you'll get what you want. And also one more reminder, let's just pick something. Remember that you want to click on online full text available, because that will give you access to the article. And when you click there, you're going to get choices, Gale, PubMed. Sometimes there's only one or two here, and sometimes there's a bunch. And you just click on the link, and then it will open for you. And good hunting.